Hello, everybody. It's me again. It's Friday, baby. It's Freedom Friday out here, matter of fact. And tell your friends we live. Come on. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. In the words of Carolina Kitchen, we here for another day. We at panel number 5. Welcome to the Brothers Obtaining and Navigating Dynamic Solidarity, also known as bonds, baby. We coming in smooth today because we closing out this week. Transmen and Transmasculine Week of Affirmation and Resilience 2022. Hello. I'm going to need y'all to share. Start your watch parties. Y'all know what time it is. Hey, my name is T. Pearson. I'm founder of the T. Pearson Experience, also known as TPX, Team Nosy. Stand up, baby. We here. Hey, listen, today's panel, it's amazing. Today's panel explores what are the pressing and upcoming issues that are impacting the rights of trans men and the transmasculine community. Welcome again. Come on. We just vibing because we need y'all to fill these seats. We need you to hit that share button and let your folks know that day 5 is here. What's next? What is the action plan for the trans men and transmasculine community? I don't know, but I got my paper and my pen because we got a dope-ass panel. We got a bomb-ass moderator. Hey, the sponsors, though. Hold up. I got to stop the music because I got to talk about these sponsors. Hey, the sponsors is so amazing. You just want to say, how amazing are they? Okay, I'm going to start over. The sponsors are so amazing. How amazing are they? Guess what they did? They was like, if you don't got it, don't worry about it. We still want you to come to the events this weekend. Oh, man, I don't know if you ain't heard. Let me tell you, if you have not heard, the Sips and Cigars, baby. The Sips and Cigars is going down this Saturday. That's tomorrow from 7 to 11 p.m. at the Costa's Rum Bar. Listen, if you don't have it, guess what? Don't even worry about it because guess what we have? A coupon code. Let me click on it right now. It's over here in the comments. We have a free code for you. It's right here in the comments. Click that link. Get your free tickets. Now, listen. Come in. Listen. This is for the trans men and transmasculine community only. I'm going to say that again. Trans men and transmasculine community only. Y'all know what that means. Y'all know what that means, okay? That's all I'm going to say. I ain't going to say nothing more about it. But listen, guess what else is going on this weekend? The Black Trans Joy Brunch, baby. Oh, it's going down. Oh, it's going down so good this weekend at the Chateau Remix. I'm going to need you to grab your tickets for this too. And guess what? Guess what? The sponsor said, if you ain't got it, no worries, because we got it. So guess what we have for you in the comments for that as well? Free tickets, baby. Shout out to them sponsors. Let me put them up on the screen because they came in and they showed up and showed out for this wonderful conference this year. We thank all of our sponsors for this opportunity to be here yet another year to be able to share and immerse ourselves in information for the Trans Men and Transmasculine Week of Affirmation 2022. We are so appreciative of them and we want to say thank you. So if y'all can help us by hitting that share button, if you can help us by hitting that comment button, we want to hear one thought from you in 20 words or less. This is your comment. This is your question. In 20 words or less. What is your thoughts? What's next? What's next for the trans men and the transmasculine community? We want to hear from you in the comments. And without further ado, listen, hold on. Y'all know I gotta have some music. Hold on, brother. I got my brother in the back. He just told me my brother just flew in. I'm about to bring out one of the co-executive directors of Bond. Oh, man, I got to bring him up. Hold on, brother. I'm coming because he likes to come in popping. He likes to come in, Papa. Let me find you a good song, brother. What song you want to hear? Can somebody call to the VIP room and tell Lee he fitting to come on? Hey, Lee, I'm about to bring you on, brother, while these folks share this live. I'm going to need y'all to share this live because it's going down today. We at the Welcome Station. We here. Hey, my brother, your brother, coming to the stage, folks, is your good brother. He goes by the name of Mr. E. Lee Dyer. Where you at, Mr. Fourth? Mr. Fourth. Hello.
Hey, what is going on, y'all?
Hey, brother. I'm going in the back. And listen, shout out one more good time to them sponsors. Y'all got some good sponsors. They got all the free stuff in the back. I'll be back later. Have a good show.
All right. Hey, welcome and thank you for joining us for the What's Next Action Planning for Transmen and Transmasculine Communities panel. I am Ely Dyer IV, pronouns he, him, and I serve as the co-executive director for Brothers Obtaining and Navigating Dynamic Solidarity, also known as Bonds. Listen, the panel today, which is our last panel of our virtual week of events, and I thank y'all for tuning in this week. But today's panel, we are going to explore what are the pressing and upcoming issues impacting the rights and lives of trans men and transmasculine communities. We are so excited for the second year of the Trans Men and Transmasculine Week of Affirmation and Resilience. And let me just tell y'all, listen, thank y'all so much for tuning in all week. We have appreciated the love. We've appreciated the support and the engagement with our panelists. And our panelists have appreciated engaging with you all. So it's just been a vibe, y'all. But most importantly, we definitely want to thank our sponsors and funders that made this event, all of our events possible. Destination Tomorrow, IF, a Foundation for Radical Possibility, the Transgender Justice Funding Project, Gilead Sciences, Us Helping Us, the National Trans Visibility March, Unspoken Treasure Society, Flux AHF, and the Human Rights Campaign. Thanks to those who responded in the chat to our opening question. We're going to give folks a few moments to get on in and share and get their watch party started. While we're waiting, please let us know some of your thoughts in the chat. What are you looking forward to learning from this panel? And what are you looking forward to seeing in the responses? We'll get started shortly. Please share this stream in your networks.
What's up on the time? What's up, y'all? Y'all heard my brother. We want to hear from you in the comments. We want to know how you feeling at this moment. We want to know your thoughts on what's next. We want to know, what are you trying to get from this panel? We need y'all to hit that share button. Hit that share button. Listen, later on this panel, we have a Q&A coming up. And we want you to put your comments in all throughout the show. Feel free to direct the questions to a specific panelist. If you want our wonderful moderator to bring on to answer a question, include her name as well. Now, without further ado, it is my absolute pleasure to throw it to our moderator for today. Ooh, I don't know. I know she's going to want some good music. I'm going to throw it to our wonderful moderator of the day, and I need y'all to help me. Help me right now bring on our wonderful moderator, Miss Octavia. Miss Octavia, where you at, Miss Octavia? Hey. Woo! Hello, Miss Octavia.
Hello, everyone.
Let's rock for a second, sis. While they share this live, we need them to share some live and drop this love for you real quick. We gotta get you an audience up in here. Hit that share. Where you at? Octavia! Woo! Hey, Miss Octavia, welcome to the conversation. It is my absolute pleasure to hand you the microphone while I go in the back and catch these free things from the sponsors. I'll be back on to catch you later on, sir.
Thank you, T. Well, everyone, my name is Octavia Y. Lewis, MPA. My pronouns are she and her, and I am the Chief Advocacy and Policy Officer at Destination Tomorrow, which is one of the sponsors. Shout out to DT. Again, I am honored to be in this space. Again, I am not trying to take up space because I support my brothers 100%. And again, it is an honor to be here moderating this panel for brothers obtaining and navigating dynamic solidarity bonds. So I'm going to introduce you all to our wonderful panelists today. First, we have Matteo Presenti. And please tell us a little about yourself, your name, your pronouns, your career projects. You can't hear me? No, I can't hear you.
Mateo, you on mute. So Mateo is on mute. So let me tell y'all, Mateo has been here with us last year, and he is back again. There you go, Mateo. You is in the building. I'm going to the back. Let me go get the more. Save me some chicken.
Nope, can't hear you. See, we have some technical difficulties. Technical difficulties on the floor.
Does that work?
Oh, now we hear you. Come on in the building.
Perfect. I'm so sorry about that. So, hey everyone, it's great to be here with y'all. Thank you, Octavia. My name is Mateo de la Torre, but I go by Mateo Presente on most everywhere, like social and advocacy spaces. But I do feel strongly about naming the fact that my family name is de la Torre, since it is something that I've recently reclaimed. So again, I use he, him pronouns. I'm a trans Latino from Tijuana, Mexico. I lived in DC. I'm currently in DC right now for a couple of days, but I lived here for 6 years, and now I'm back at the border between San Diego and Tijuana. I decided to move back with my family and spend more time with them intentionally, which is a phenomenal gift that I have an opportunity to live with and through. I came into my trans identity a little bit over 10 years ago, and that kind of feels like a whole lifetime ago, almost like 10 years. I fit a lot in there. But career-wise, I've had the opportunity of working directly with trans advocacy at the national level. I worked primarily around combating the criminalization of our community. So I worked a lot around combating police violence, decriminalizing sex work, decriminalizing drug use and conditions of confinement within prisons and jails. So I am an abolitionist, and I've committed my life to this lifelong journey of liberation. And I invite anyone that's listening to look into abolition, what the values mean, and how you can incorporate the values of abolition and liberation into your daily lives and advocacy. But a couple of years ago, I shifted a little bit in my career path from kind of like US-based policy work to international programming with LGBTQ folks, particularly around political participation. And through that, in the last 2 years, I've met so many trans men in Latin America that are having the same exact conversations that Tyree and Lee kind of like pulled me into a couple of years ago around creating these types of conversations and spaces for ourselves. So it's truly an honor to kind of like be back here with y'all and be in this conversation with y'all. So I'm looking forward to chatting with everyone.
Ashe. And thank you for that. And next we have Mr. Lindsay Clark.
Hi, folks. Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. I'm so happy to be joining you all today. My name is Lindsay Clark. I use they, them pronouns, and I am the Deputy Director of the Trans Justice Initiative, which is a program within the Human Rights Campaign Foundation. I will have been with HRC for a decade in February. So a lot of my work has centered in HRC's mission, and I started with HRC working on the political side. So I did electoral and legislative campaigns, and then I moved over to the foundation team about 2 years ago now to join the Trans Justice Initiative, which is an initiative that was created specifically to try and combat the epidemic of fatal violence against trans folks, and specifically Black and brown trans women. And so, yeah, I love my job. I love my work. And I've been really lucky to be in this work as I've lived into my own transmasculine identity. I've identified as non-binary for many years, but I really have leaned into the masculinity only in the last 2 or 3 years. Grew my first beard in quarantine. So yeah, I'm really excited to be a part of this conversation, and and start to have conversations about leaning a little bit more into that trans masculinity. And I am actually originally from rural Ohio. I now live in Michigan, which is snowy today. And so I'm very excited to be a part of this conversation and to chat a little bit more about what trans masculinity means to our community and to me.
Well, we're glad to have you. And next we have Mr. Safi Majidi. And if I butchered your name, please forgive me.
All right, let me come off mute so I don't, have that same issue. So no, you did great with my name. Hello, everyone. My name is Safi Mojidi. My pronouns are he, him. I am a man of trans experience living in the Washington, D.C. area. Actually just moved back to the East Coast from California. I was out there for about a year. So a little bit about myself. I am the founder and executive director of a nonprofit called Hacking the Workforce. Our mission is essentially to increase diversity in cybersecurity, but really focusing on the Black and Brown LGBTQ population, specifically because there is just a massive shortage of people in tech, but cybersecurity specifically, to kind of combat a lot of the security and privacy risks that a lot of us don't even understand are going on, much less having the requisite information to kind of take care of ourselves while we're using the internet. So I have been in cybersecurity for about 15 years. Right now, I am the head of information security at an organization called Folks Health. We provide virtual telemedicine to particularly folks who are in the LGBTQ community. So we provide HRT, we provide a few other affirming services like a virtual primary care physician, things that are informed by qualified, competent, culturally competent clinicians. So my day job is head of information security there. While I'm wrapping up my doctorate, so I'm actually defending my dissertation next month, and then I should be graduating at the end of the year. So yes, lots of work to do, but very excited to have this chapter of my life be over.
Come on, doctor. We need more of you out here. Yes. And last but definitely not least, Mr. Callum Bug.
Hi, everybody. My name is Callum Bug. I'm a junior kinesiology major at James Madison University and a volunteer for SOGI, which is a resource on campus for LGBTQ students, and also a volunteer outreach program. I'm very excited to be here today. This is my first time working with Bonds, and it's really nice to see a whole panel of trans men and trans masculine individuals.
Ashe. So, before we jump into these questions, I want to not give you permission, but allow you the leeway to take up as much space as you want. As a trans woman, it is my honor and my pleasure to step back so that you all could step up. Because trans men are not a monolithic community. And as everyone can see, there is great diversity on this panel, which was very intentional on Bond's part. So now let's jump into these questions. So the first question is, what do you feel are some of the pressing issues that create barriers to equity for trans men and trans masculine folks? And anyone can start.
Nope.
Go ahead.
No, you go.
All right. So I was thinking about a lot of these questions, and I was reading through them yesterday and this morning, and just thinking about like I wish I had the answers for these questions. Like that's what I was thinking. But more than anything, I kept coming back to the fact that like we have to start conversations. We have to continue having the same conversations until like we're all on the same page, until we've brought every single person with us. So when I was thinking about this question and thinking about like, okay, so like I could focus on thinking about specific barriers, right? Like thinking in categories like mental health, physical health and well-being, like different categories like that, like safety, etc., like opportunities for leadership, for jobs, etc. But what I was thinking about is like, why is there a disparate impact? Why is there a particular issue that is particular to our community, right? To transmasculine folks and trans people. So when I was thinking about that, like I'm thinking about like the why behind the barriers, right? So I'm thinking like we need to understand and deconstruct how we got here in the first place. Like we were all moving together until we started letting go of people, and then we need to identify why and when we started letting go of people before we start talking about the impact that letting go of them had, right? So if we don't start like addressing from that point, to me, like it's kind of like it's not doing it justice to solve an issue without like getting to the root of where these barriers are coming from, right? And I was thinking like, well, what are those? Like what are like the whys? And like I'm thinking like for me even, and I shared this in the panel, I think it was last year, where I was like, as a man, it's hard to show up in spaces, particularly like knowing what I know and have learned from like abolition and like people at the margins and intersectionality and like the fact that there's like compounding experiences that are like truly impacting a certain population of people, and it's hard for me to come on as a man and be like, well, we need more men, like we need more spaces for men, we need to like invest more in men, because there's a scarcity mindset. Like we think that if we build something, we have to destroy something that other people have worked to build, and it's a fallacy. Like it keeps us from truly like building together, because we feel like we have to tear down to then pull ourselves up, right? So and I've been thinking a lot about that with this question, and the other thing that like you've mentioned a lot, Octavia, and it's been mentioned throughout this week, is that there is such a diversity within our community. Like you can't tell a poor trans person that their experience is like any lesser or more so than another trans person that's situated differently in the community, right? So how do we agree on an agenda? Or do we not have to agree on an agenda, right? Like we have to have these conversations, because like, okay, let's say we had the spaces. Let's say we actually had the spaces. What are we talking about in those spaces? So going through the process, like years long work of actually building community and having these conversations, I think is where we're going.
Okay. Now I have a quick follow-up question to that. So again, when you were talking about the whole dismantling piece, I do think that a lot of systems that are in place are not broken. I do believe that they are working the way they were created, designed, and implemented, which is with none of us in mind. And I do think that sometimes we do have to break down certain things in order for us to build up new things. Because sometimes we can't have two buildings in one space. And I think that we do sometimes have to push back and sometimes have to destroy certain things. Because a lot of things that impact our community is because of systems in place that have taught them things about our communities that don't accurately represent us within our communities. So could any one of you like touch back on that? And Mateo, I know that I saw your finger, so I definitely want to hear from you, and I would definitely love to hear what the other panelists have to say.
I'll just be very brief and quick, and 1,000%, you're 100% right. We need to dismantle the state. Like that is literally like my personal value. What I meant by like, we don't have to tear down other communities' progress to pull ourselves up, but like the state, we can abolish that.
I was just going to add, I think that you make a very great point, both of you, because a lot of what I see in my day-to-day life, in my career, in terms of cybersecurity, is people, non-BIPOC people in tech understand the game. They understand how it's played. And so for me as a Black trans man to think I have the power to change the entire game, like by just walking through the front door, like that's not gonna happen. If it was possible, it probably would have happened by now, right? And I think there are, like you mentioned, the systems are put in place that way for a reason, because they know it's hard for people to get in that way, right? And so to me, getting an opportunity to, have a career in tech, which is where my mind always goes, because honestly, that's how I've been able to serve my community, serve other people, just serve in general, right? Having the experience or the access to people who don't understand why I'm asking certain questions. Like I'm asking these questions so because I'm trying to understand how you all are playing the game. And guess what? Once I understand that, we're going to the back door real quick, and I'm holding the door open. All of us, let's go. Everybody come on in here, right? And it's like we're gonna
Say
use
that.
we're right. We're gonna use the system. I'm not gonna tear down the system because the system is working. It's just not working for us right now. So what we're gonna do is make sure we get in how we can get in, and then and to compare it to like cybersecurity and my nonprofit, we're hacking the workforce. Like we're finding our way through a back door into the workforce, and this, once we're in, it's we're gonna take over, and and that's the point of having diversity in tech. It's so that we know that the systems and the technology that all of us have to use right now, they're not made by us. So we're not inherently protected by those systems, right? We're not the people. We might not always have access to a laptop. We might not always have access to, Wi-Fi with, that's secure. But if we know how to protect ourselves while we're using those things, we can use that to our benefit, right? We don't have to, sign up for an expensive cable bill just to get internet at home. We can get a hotspot. We can make things work, right? There's grants out there. I think there's a lot of things that sometimes, particularly trans masculine people, we don't want to appear weak. We don't want to ask for help. And, there are systems in place because people need them. And I think organizations like Bonds, like this is the crux of what our community so badly needs. And it's the information sharing. It's pulling people together. It's community conversations. It's co-creation. It's all the things that other people are doing. And sometimes, honestly, kind of taking the things that they've seen us create, but not able to have solid backing for financially to get something out into the market, right? We have people getting their ideas stolen all the time, and just not, Black content creators not being, praised and even acknowledged as where a lot of these, cultural shifts are coming from, right? So I think as a whole, the more we do and empower each other through things like this, the better off we're just going to continue to be, right? Like everyone has this special area niche that they're, super passionate about, and they know how to apply that to the broader community. And I just encourage us to continue, and hats off to Lee and Bonds. Thank you for doing this, first of all. But I'm very excited to have a lot of these conversations, because it's like I'm finally finding, my community and people who, there's just certain things we don't even have to say out loud because we just kind of get it, right? But then there are those things, right? Like, abolitionist and working at HRC and student, like those are all things that are great and make us just that different, but we still have that shared connection and bond, right? So
Shade to all of that. Anyone else want to chime in before we go to the next question?
I can pop in really fast. I just want to, so I think it might be my background. It might be the time of year that we're in. But when I heard this question, the very first thing that I thought about was that as y'all are saying, like those systems that are supposed to serve us aren't serving us. And in many cases, they're getting worse right now. Like folks are really saying the quiet part out loud with their whole chest right now. And it's been a weird year to be a transmasculine person. We see every year a ton of anti-trans bills that get filed across the country in state legislatures. But this year we tracked almost 350 of those bills. And of those 350, 150 of them were anti-trans bills. And 25 of them passed. Those systems are actively getting worse right now. And the work that everyone is doing to try and fight that back and to live, our most beautiful, our most visible, our most free, our most just lives, in the backdrop of that happening is really complicated. It's really complex. And I watching this year go down, it really felt like the trans community at large was used to try to be a wedge issue in an election, and to really try to mobilize conservative folks in ugly conversations about a community that folks just really don't understand, don't know folks. And I think what's good about the last couple of weeks is that it looks like it didn't work, right? Like conservatives underperformed expectations in this election. They underperformed historical precedent in this election, but they really worked hard this year to talk about us in ways that set us back, and to work within those systems to set us back. And they're coming at us from all different directions. And so, I think when I think about the things that are blocking me as a transmasculine person from equity, I really think about that. I think about the fact that, in this year, the Dobbs decision and the conversations that we're having about abortion access and reproductive care. And I think all of these issues, they compound to make our justice harder and our fight harder. What makes me happy and excited about this fight is that we're more than strong enough to take it. Like we're going to take this fight, we'll win it. But it really does feel like we're in a fight right now. And so for me, transmasculinity, one of the barriers to our equity is our visibility. It's our voices. It's us sort of stepping forward and living our lives in a big, broad way. And I think that, the harder it is for trans people to live openly and freely, the harder it is for us to be visible and for us to take up those spaces and to be in those conversations that we need to be in. And so, I'm so grateful to be on this panel and to be working with Bonds and talking about all the good work that everyone has done this year. And there's a lot of work ahead. And so, I think working, as you all are saying, to try to make these things better as we work towards cultural justice is really important.
Ashe. Colin, would you like to add anything before we go to the next question?
Sure. As a student right now, one of the biggest barriers I think of is lack of education. A lot of teachers, especially at my school, I grew up in Southern California, so there was no lack of trans people and queer identities in Southern California. But I moved to rural Harrisonburg, Virginia, which was a bit of a culture shock. And people here are actually very tolerant, but they are uneducated. That seems to be my experience so far. And so I think one of the biggest barriers is education. And I believe Lindsay talked about visibility. That's another barrier, because as growing up as a trans man, I didn't see myself represented in a lot of things. So I feel as long as we improve visibility, improve representation and inclusion, that barrier can be broken down.
Ashe to all of that. And that is a perfect segue into our second question of where do you see trans men and trans masculine visibility in 5 years? And I really want you to think about what that looks like. And just because we say visibility doesn't always equate to equity and equality. And when we talk about, and Lindsay, you touched on one thing about, a lot of those hateful conservative ads that, were put out there that spew negativity and hatred, disinformation about our community. I just think about those young trans masculine boys and trans, men that are coming up. And they had to hear all of these ugly things about them, people defining them and people not knowing them. Like, even though they did not win as far as the red wave, they did impact our community in negative ways with the hatred that they spewed. So I really would like to hear what you all have to say on the whole visibility piece. Because yes, I want my brothers to get out there and be visible, but I also have, that overprotection of my brothers when I see that they're visible, but then I go and read the comments. And then those things are like, my brothers have to read that and they're out there putting their face out there, putting their bodies on the line. And then other people are reading and tearing them apart, and all they're trying to do is exist. Not just merely exist, but thrive in a world where we should have access to everything. So where do you see that visibility in 5 years?
I can jump in if that works. Okay. So again, I was deconstructing the question. I was wait, can folks still see me? Okay, perfect.
We hear you.
Okay, yeah. So the thing that I was thinking about is like, again, like I'm about to turn 30. It's like 10 years for me starting my transition and like my trans journey. So I've been thinking a lot about like how things have just changed for me personally, but also like in the world around me, and thinking about like how fast the conversation has changed and grown around like trans men and transmasculine folks. Like even 10 years ago, we weren't necessarily like saying trans mask, right? We were still primarily like using trans men as basis, and then like being comfortable in our masculinity enough to not have to identify as men if we don't identify as men, but are masculine. Like that is growth. That is tremendous growth that a lot of folks have like we've been doing that work in our community over the last 10 years. And like I remember when I started doing my advocacy, like when I went to the Hill and did a congressional internship when I was in college, there was like one trans person, one trans man that was not living super visibly or super out in the space. And there was just a severe lack of opportunity and fear. Like people had fear to give us any kind of opportunity. But then again, like it was easier for us to be like given opportunities because we were less visible, right? Like we could go navigate these spaces like as an invisible like trans person. Yeah, that's funny. Interesting to say. But yeah, so like I'm thinking about like, okay, well, like if we've been on this like the farther we get, the faster we're going. It's hard for me to think of like how far we can get, or like how much the hate is going to grow with this exponential like acceleration of our like visibility, our rights, our conversations. And more than anything, like what I wish for the next 5 years is for us to continue being critical and grow together, like as a community. Like there's so many people in the community that we have to unlearn to categorize and give value, assign value to different types of oppression. Obviously, a lot of like we know the particular people who are primary recipients of violence and hate and lack of opportunity and marginalization and like all of that. We know that, and there's still more people in our community, and we need to all continue to grow and learn together. So I'm thinking that there's an opportunity for us to kind of like do better as a community and really think of like who is everyone that we've left out, and as we're working on getting us there, because this is super intentional. Like this practice that we're doing right now is extremely intentional, and it will create more spaces just by us being here and Bonds doing this. So as we built up again, like for our communities, like who else is beside us that also we need to kind of like move forward together, so that we don't have to revisit these conversations for every section and segment of our community.
So I have a quick little tidbit for that. So I like to actively listen. So when you use the word invisible, do you think that trans masks and trans men are invisible, or that the world doesn't have a vernacular or lens in order to see them in the respect and the honor and dignity that trans masks and trans men deserve?
I believe that a lot of folks do feel invisible. Like most of the stuff that they're experiencing is not anywhere where the folks representing them are talking about those issues. But I was saying more so as like that conversation, that's an uncomfortable conversation that we've like had in the community around the fact that we get a choice. Like we get a choice to be visible or not as like trans masc and trans men, you know? So that is an extremely uncomfortable conversation to have, because I'm not going to knock you if you choose not to live openly, because like I know what it means to live openly, and it's hard. Like it's not easy, and it's not great all the time. I love it. Like it fills me and it is part of me, but I wouldn't pressure anyone else to, you know, live in that experience. But that's kind of more of what it brings up to me in my brain when I talk about like invisible, visible, and that.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Sorry, I was trying to get off mute. Jeez. Yeah, I think they're all great points. It's like visibility equals representation, but how do you make people, kind of take that on for the community to like be a representation of who, like them in a situation that they might not be able to see themselves in because they don't know about your identity, right? So it's like, I think it's that, I don't know, I feel like is a Black trans man particularly, it's like I naturally have the inclination to want to do that, but as you start talking about some of the safety concerns that come along with it, and it's, as you just mentioned, it's one of those things like I can't be upset that person for choosing themselves, right? Because at the end of the day, what is our journey about? Our journey is usually about choosing ourselves. So I think it is very difficult. It is a very difficult conversation, and I think when we start thinking about why some people choose to, make themselves more visible, it's essentially, are they getting to the place where they care so much about the community? Not saying that if you're not visible that you don't care, but that we're essentially, starting that cycle again of putting ourselves last and thinking about other people instead of us, right? So I think it's very interesting. I love talking about stuff like this to kind of pull apart the nuances that a lot of people just wouldn't really understand had you not had some semblance of a trans or gender expansive experience in your life. And so yeah, I think these are all tough questions. I love hearing how other trans masculine people feel about it, because it is validating in and of itself. It's like I'm not the only one who thinks, like, who has this train of thought or logic around something that it could be great. Sure, you could become visible and everyone in the world accept you and you not receive any hate whatsoever, but we know where we live and we know that that's not the case. And so us doing that for ourselves, whichever decision we make, I think is ultimately the right decision, right, for that person.
Callum, Lindsay, would you like to add anything?
As someone whose career goal is to be in the healthcare system, in 5 years, I'm going to see more trans doctors, trans surgeons, nurses. Just growing up without seeing that was difficult, but knowing that I could help be the change towards more like trans people in healthcare is going to be very important to me. Especially, that's why visibility is so important, because a lot of people don't go to the doctor because they just assume like, oh, he's not going to listen to me, or I'm not going to get the respect I deserve. So hopefully in 5 years, we're seeing more trans people in healthcare, more trans people in places of authority, specifically in politics. Because if you want to advocate for your rights, the best way to do it is to get to that point, to get to that position.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think, I want our tent to be bigger and bigger every year. I want it to be a place that more people can, joyfully stand under, and that more and more people take that intention and do stand visibly under. Yeah, I mean, passing privilege and trans masculinity is a thing, and trying to figure out, how do you continue to make that change in your community by living your life. And I've had other queer versions that were more visibly queer and able to make that change where, oh, this queer person is very nice and we're just at a grocery store. And now to do that, I have to, I have to wear a t-shirt. I have to do something. Like I really have to put it out there. But I think as we continue down this path of more and more people identifying as LGBTQ plus, I think the number for Gen Z is like 1 in 5, something like that. Like, more and more people are going to continue to join us under the tent. And so hopefully as that happens, we'll find a little more safety in numbers, and we'll find a little more, more opportunities for visibility and more options for what that looks like. And I'm really hopeful for us in the next 5 years. I know it's coming. And I think as we get there, as we move towards it, it does take real intention. It does take, real work to make sure that you are showing up. And like, you're somebody's ancestor, and figuring out a way to like live into that and hold that power and really show up for the folks who are coming behind us. I think we owe it to the people who came before us to find a way to do it. And so, yeah, I hope to see us everywhere, because we are everywhere. I just want us to be visible everywhere.
Ashe to all of that. So that segues into our third question of what does inclusion of trans men and trans masculine folks look like to you? And we already in Column, you did a great job of touching on what that looks like potentially in healthcare. And maybe you did as far as saying that, yes, we are visible because we are everywhere. A lot of us don't walk around with a shirt on to say I'm trans or I have it tattooed on our forehead. A lot of us just want to live and thrive, if we're going to be honest. And that's okay to be selfish, because that is a part of self-care. And we have to make sure that we are navigating these spaces in a safe and accommodating and productive for you, that individual. Because what I always tell anyone that I'm working with is that it's okay to be an upstander and it's okay to know when to be a bystander. And so we have to have that autonomy of saying, yeah, today I do want to be vocal about this, but tomorrow I may not feel vocal, and that's okay. So where do we see, that inclusion, or how do we envision that looking?
For me, like most experiences I've had with anything that starts with DEI has been horrible. So it's like inclusion to me is like such a like icky word now, because like I don't want to feel included when I am somewhere. Like I want to belong. Like I want to inherently belong in a space and have the space like be thought with me in mind. I don't want to just be included in somebody's like extra party, right? So like to me it's more of like I want to get to a point where there's an absence of fear of belonging, right? Like that is freedom. Like absence of fear, I believe it was Nina Simone that said that. Like freedom is the absence of fear. So like I wrote down a couple of stuff of like what it would look like to me. So like I want there to be information on anything and everything that like I could need medically for my body just available for me, and the people that would be responsible for that to like know how to treat me, right? Like that's the type of like thing that I want to work towards, like where it's not a question of like can I get my needs met? It's more of like a like where do I go, like how do I get it, and it exists and it's there because they've thought of me in the building of a community, right, in a society, a collective society. So those are some of my thoughts on that.
All right, who else want to drop some gems?
We can't hear you.
Sorry about that. I was saying, who else wanted to drop some gems? But I guess, we are going to transition or give it back over to T to bring us into a commercial break if no one else has anything to say.
I could pop in real fast before the commercial. I think
Sure.
I think one of the things that I think about a lot within transmasculinity is just masculinity, right? Like this is a fraught space, and we already mentioned a little bit like passing privilege, but male privilege is huge, and I think for my view and my perspective on the transmasculine community, that's part of why our voice is so important. Like we have such a distinct perspective on something that our whole society is grappling with, right? Like our whole society is talking about what does masculinity mean, what does it look like, and so I think for me, when I look forward to where I hope our voices are included, where I hope we belong, it's in that broader conversation about masculinity and what does it mean to be masculine. I think that one of the ways that even if you're not living as someone who's visibly trans, just living your life as a masculine person who lives outside of the boundaries of what that is supposed to mean, I think is huge. Like, there are ways that each of us, just in living as masculine people, can make real change towards gender justice just by living our lives. And so, yeah, I hope that we belong not only in queer spaces, not only in trans spaces, but also in that broader conversation that our whole society is having about masculinity, and that we're able to, I love that word belonging. Like, I love the idea that that we really live into a place where we do feel like we belong in the conversation, and that our voice is a critical one. I see so often transmasculine people step back, and that's so important. And there are rooms where we should be running forward. Like, there are places where we should be throwing chairs at the table. So trying to find those places, and then find a way to belong there. I think, that's for me the next frontier of us getting to inclusion or belonging, or whatever our highest high could look like.
All right. Well, that, everyone, concludes the first segment. We will turn it over to T, who will take us into a commercial break, and we will be back momentarily to jump back into the second portion of today's discussion.
Hey, thank you so much, sis. Appreciate you. Listen, what a great conversation. What a great conversation is going on today on day 5 of the Brothers Obtaining and Navigating Solidarity, also known as Bonds, Transmen and Transmasculine Week of Affirmation and Resilience 2022. Listen, I don't know about you, but I got plenty of notes that I took this week. The notes that I took today is amazing. We're going to take just a little quick dance break to let you go to the bathroom, stretch your feet, because as your toes tingling, they probably sleep. Stretch them out a little bit. We're going into the second half. My good sister's doing an amazing job as a moderator. I got my brothers on a panel sharing their lived experiences. We got you in the comments answering. We appreciate you. Woo! Y'all make sure y'all follow me any and every way on social media. T Pearson, baby, also known as TPX. Team Nosy, where you at? Aha! Hey, listen, I got to give a shout out to the sponsors real good, because the sponsors, if you have not been paying attention over in the comments, we have dropped the free link, baby. The free link. There's no excuse for you not to be in the building when there is a free link, baby. The free link say, come on and got it. We got it. You got it. We don't got it. Everybody got it, because the sponsors have paid the price. They paid the cost to be the boss, baby. But listen, they bought out something else too. They bought out the daggone everything at the Black Trans Joy Brunch, baby. Hit them comments. Scroll up. You're going to see that Eventbrite link. Hit that link. Get your free tickets. Share it with your friends. Share it with your crew. It's cold in DC. Ain't nobody outside anyway. So you might as well get dressed to come sit your ass down and have some sips and cigars, or come to the brunch. I'm going to be in the building, baby, on Sunday. Come and find me. Come and find me, because I am there. Listen, I'm going to need y'all to get in the comments. I'm going to need y'all to get in them comments and do a Q&A. We got a Q&A coming up in a little bit. They want to hear from you. We want to end this week with answers. No more questions, answers. These men done set their calendars aside to sit on this panel to answer questions from you. So feel free to drop them over in the comment section so that we can make sure we get them answered for you. Hit that share button. Hit that share button. I'm going to keep on saying it. But in the meantime, between time, I'm going to need y'all to drop some love. Drop some love for our dope panelists. Drop some love for our dope ass moderator. And welcome once again to day 5 of Brothers Obtaining and Navigating Dynamic Solidarity. Tyree and Lee got some good shit coming on over here at Bonds. If you are not following them, I need for you to follow, subscribe, share everything on YouTube and everywhere social media, so that the message can continue to be shared folks like me can be further educated, and my son who is trans can further see folks that identify with him. Listen, good sis Octavia, are you ready to come back in, baby? Because we're ready to go into the second half. Hit that share button. Woo! Uh-oh. This is my part right here, though. Let me stop before Facebook say no. We don't own none of these rights, Facebook, to none of these songs. I don't even know them people in real life. So don't come after us because we nonprofit and don't have no money. Hey, look, good sis. I'm going to hand it back off to you. I'm going back in the back to finish drinking all these bottles of stuff that the bonds are sponsored. The pre-brunch turn up, I guess. So I'll be back in a little bit. Y'all keep
Get lit
up.
for all of us. So welcome back to the second portion of our discussion. So we're supposed to start off with number 4, but number 4 is a repeat of question 3. So I'm going to go to 5. How can trans men and transmasculine communities cultivate leadership? What does that cultivation of leadership look like to you?
Big. All right. I can speak to it. Folks mentioned it a little bit earlier, but I think part of it is just making sure that any door that you walk through, that you hold it wide open, and that you make sure that folks are coming in behind you. I think it was Mateo who mentioned like the scarcity mindset and trying to get to a place where you're thinking in an abundance mindset, and there's room for everybody, and really leaning into these kind of caucus spaces, mentorship opportunities, any place where you can draw connections back to folks within your community and bring them forward. I think is it's an important part of what we do as trans advocates, is make space for the other trans advocates coming behind us. And I was an organizer for a long time. Maybe that's not something you ever stop being, but one of my favorite organizing principles is that it's been organizing, you lead by pushing. And I think it's so important to get behind the leaders that you see upcoming and really push them into their highest leadership. And that in itself is a huge part of what we do as advocates. So I want to say thank you again to Bonds for this space, because this has been such a breath of fresh air. So lovely. It's a wonderful caucus space, and I hope that we get many more of these to come.
I was just going to add, like, those are great points. I think part of, thinking about what your leadership, in terms of how you asked, is just really being, I think of everything as almost like a sport, in terms of like, you have to know how to play well with others, being like a good team member, good teammate, right? Like, I don't think, sometimes in our community, I think there's some ego, and I think someone mentioned it, it's okay for us to create at the same time, right? We can be working on different things that have different value propositions, and just because it's something like yours, it doesn't mean that it's taking away from yours, right? And I think just really being able to really cultivate relationships within community. I think a lot of times, even in the queer community, it can turn into us versus them, and and I think even with spaces like this, it's important that we have these spaces, but it's also important that other people don't take it as, men are being men again, or like that hyper masculinity, that we want to be part of the, oppressed, right? Like it's not oppression Olympics, right? We can all have our struggles, and we can all, at the same time, while we're struggling, try to get out of that struggle, without it, looking like we're trying to one up anyone else, right? And I think sometimes when it comes to being a good leader, it's really knowing how to empower people, like what you just mentioned, Lindsay, knowing how to empower people to do the things that they're the best at, right? So that they really understand, hey, maybe I don't necessarily need to do it all. Maybe we can be a team. We can figure this out together, as opposed to everyone trying to do the same type of thing, and we're wasting time. And it's urgent. Like we need to support ourselves and create opportunities for ourselves, because no one else is really doing it. And if they were going to do it, it would have probably been done by now. And so I think it's really important to just us to keep like stay focused on our North Star, what is most important to us, how we think we can be most impactful, but also I urge us to really take the opportunity to form partnerships, right? Like instead of creating from scratch, reinventing the wheel, take some things that someone's already created with asking, of course, learn from each other, have, meet people virtually or in person to just build relationships, right? I think coming out of COVID, I know COVID was hard for me. Actually, part of the reason why I moved to California was to have surgery, general affirming surgery. And so going through that whole process without a community, if you will, because I'm from the East Coast, and then to make things a little bit worse, we're in the middle of a pandemic. So in order to make sure I can continue with my procedures, I couldn't risk seeing a lot of people, meeting a lot of people, and getting COVID, for example. So I'm very thankful for spaces like this because this is exactly the thing that I know I needed, but I didn't know I needed it until I really needed it. And you're in that place where you're like, oh damn, like I'm getting to the point where either there's like that precipice of I'm not being true enough to myself. So like doing that, starting that journey, whatever that looks like for you, and really feeling like you have a community while you're doing that is so important. Like I can't stress it anymore. Because if not, I think it's so easy to get isolated. It's so easy to get caught up in, oh, well, I know someone because we follow each other on IG or Instagram. It's like, that's not a real connection, right? Like for the things that we're saying that we know our community needs, we need to create real connections with actual human beings that go further than liking posts and hearting stories, right? Like that's great, and sure, that's how we can communicate and we can help spread the word about things, but I think that's still no substitute for actual human interaction, building connections, being vulnerable, creating safe spaces, co-creating what we want our society to look like for ourselves, and certainly for our kids, our our offspring, our cousins, everyone, right? Like I think we kind of, if we create a better world, by default, everyone's just going to benefit, right? And so I think it's kind of the onus is on us to just get our stuff together. We know what we're doing, right? Like have the confidence to understand that we can impact change if we really want to. Like there's literally nothing stopping us from doing it. So
I have something we're going to tie this all together. So I've heard the whole scarcity idea that has been mentioned by several of you all on the panel. And I just want us to be mindful that, that is intentional. Because even when we're applying for grants, it's also under the scarcity model principle of you got to get this many deliverables, and you can't have cross-pollination with this other organization because you need all the people over here. So the old mindset of providing services to our communities, it was a scarcity model tactic. And unfortunately, some people still are under that whole mindset. And yes, things are changing, because what we learned was that model does not work, and that we needed to have a holistic approach because no one person can do it all. And we had to learn to work with one another and say, oh, okay, I know this organization over here, they does this well, and we do this well. So we have these people and we can't service them in this area. You all can do that. And I'm glad because I'm now seeing more of that. But what I often tell people is when we also have a mentality of seeing through the perspective of what we have been taught. Because we always say, oh, the crab in a bad barrel mentality. But none of us here speak crab. None of us know if that crab that was going up to the top told the other crabs, hold on to my leg. And what we saw was that all the crabs fell over. So we automatically thought that the other crabs pulled them down. But in actuality, it wasn't the fact that they was pulling them down. It was just gravity. And that's what happens. And I think that even in doing this work, we have to challenge ourselves on a daily basis. Because even myself, with the things that I have been taught, or taught as a binary trans woman, that I had to change the way I looked at things. And I definitely want to hear, your perspective on gatekeeping. How does that impact you know, the trans masculine and trans men community.
One thing that I wanted to make sure to just like be super real about is the fact that opportunities come with money, and money is a scarce resource in our community. And once you start getting opportunities and getting money, it's hard to step aside and say, hey, let somebody else get this cash like for this time, right? And then there's also that thing that it doesn't matter how much personal work and growth you do on yourself, right? Like you recognize when you're not invited to a panel, like you recognize when you're not invited to a conference when you've been invited in the past, right? So I do want to be like super real with the fact that like maybe some people are like hoarding opportunities, but we also don't know if that means that that is their livelihood, right? Like that is the only time that they get the opportunity to make some income in a safe, still vulnerable way, but still it's tied to opportunities, right? Like the more somebody sees you on a panel, the more they invite you to a panel, and it becomes like the floodgates, right? Then you get invited to be on a board, an advisory board. Then you get invited to be on a board of directors. Then you get to be a part of some kind of initiative, right? And it's hard. It truly is hard to kind of like let go of that. But I also kind of like want us to think about the definition of like leadership and how we interpret that, right? Like just because somebody is being like to me leadership is an action, it's not an identity, right? Like yeah, people start identifying you as a leader, but to me it's an action. Like if you're somebody that makes sure that in your community like people you care about and love and that live around you like are safe and are fed and like have what they need to like thrive and at a minimum survive, you are a leader. You are doing the practice of leadership in your community, right? So I think it's important for everyone to kind of like deconstruct the idea of leadership and see what they're already doing as being a member of this community. Like there is no person that is currently watching us that in my opinion is not a leader. You know, like any of the people that are joining us and like could be right here having this conversation with us, and we need to have this conversation together, right? Hopefully we'll get to a point where we can have this in a room and you know, like have those exchanges. But I do think that like if we're talking about gatekeeping, like why is there gatekeeping? Okay, not enough opportunities, clearly. How is it that some people are literally just living off of these like speaking engagements and visibility opportunities? No, so it's yeah, I'll leave it there and see what other folks are thinking about with this gatekeeping situation.
I can go next. Yeah, gatekeeping. Oh man. So, I mean, I deal with gatekeeping like every day at work, in some way, shape, or form. And I think it's gatekeeping to me is an institutionalized like scenario. It's the way that people are able to, and it's not as easy as just not providing people with information or not providing people with opportunities. I think it's actually the opposite. It's disinformation. It's telling people that, oh, this career field is so hard to get into. And with that, that as a person who doesn't see a lot of themselves in that place, well, ultimately you're gonna think, okay, well, of course, like if there are not that many jobs in that industry, or because people are telling me that, and if I already think that I might not be qualified, right? Now we have imposter syndrome. Now mix that with the fact that there's no visibility or representation in that place. Now the system and how it's been created just perpetuates the thought of, hey, we're going to make it so you stop asking the questions, right? We're going to continue to give you information that is just not accurate. It's outdated. It's just flat out false, right? So, there was right when COVID started, the epidemic started, March 2020 to April 2020, and a lot of people they called it, the Great Resignation, and people are, basically starting to choose themselves over these toxic work environments that they don't even want to be in anyway, right? And so at a time when you have what is actually being called the Great Resignation, because there's so many people quitting their jobs in groves, there is now this opportunity, right? So for the past 2 years, there has, quote unquote, and I'm speaking specifically from the tech and cybersecurity industry, there should be opportunity now, but there's still this rhetoric of, you have to have a master's degree, you have to have all these certifications, you have to have all these things, and in order to get a job in tech, that's just not true. And so you have a lot of people who are breaking a lot of barriers and knocking down a lot of this disinformation by creating boot camps or organizations that help people understand, okay, this is what tech is, this is what cyber is. And oh, you used to be, a customer service rep, or you used to, work at a clinic somewhere. You can absolutely take those skills that you've learned on the job and apply those to a completely different industry, and guess what? And get some real bread, like make some really good money, right? So I think it's the perception that people are given, or the perception that people have of the unattainability of opportunity. And that's something that's systemic, and that's something that's institutionalized throughout school. And if you just think about, formal education, the news that we watch every day, just social media, all the things kind of are working together in this huge, ecosystem of it's not possible unless you look like this, unless you came from this. And I think that's essentially what gatekeeping is. So I think someone else mentioned it, but one of the biggest things that we have to do if we're really serious in doing this work is to educate people on the areas that we're subject matter experts in. We have to make sure people know, hey, whether or not you're visible or not, you can still share information about opportunity without disclosing whether or not you are a member of a specific community, right? Like, visibly, I'm Black. Visibly, I'm a man. Visibly, I'm still an anomaly in tech. And so me just working in an industry, I think, gives visibility enough to hopefully make people feel like they can be represented and they can come and show up as themselves, right? And I think many of the things that we're taught, and it's kind of just like continuously ingrained into our minds, is that self-doubt and making yourself question and wonder if you're good enough. And I can tell you, some of the rooms I've been in, I look around and I'm like, how did you get here? Like, because you don't even, how, Sway? Like, you can't even put together a whole sentence about cybersecurity, and you have a whole team of people. So I'm like, so, and to go back to what you said about leadership, just because you're put in a position where people should look at you as a leader, it doesn't necessarily make you a good leader. You're a manager for all intents and purposes. You're not a leader, right? So let's call a thing a thing.
And that's that whole power dynamic. Nepotism is real. Some people got there, all they did was just showed up and didn't have to do anything. And that does not happen for our transmasculine trans men like that. So we do have to call a spade, and we have to acknowledge that is real. And even when you were talking about those ecosystems, again, like you said, and you have to use the terminology. You have to break it down where people around you can understand it. And that's what I love you did about the whole cybersecurity thing. When you said, that's okay, because my people are going to come in through the back door.
Yep.
And that's how we have to, make sure that we are, not becoming what we say we want to dismantle. And when you do things like that, that lends credence for people to be like, you know what, I trust him. You may not have the following or the backing that all of these other people have, but he got integrity. They're doing the work. They're intentional. And for me, that's more important to being on anybody's panel than being on anybody's campaign, is the fact that people know me as someone that has integrity and that I am intentional. And you all did a wonderful job of touching on, hey, some people get in positions that don't deserve to be there, don't know how to be there, but we have other people backing them and keeping them there. And then you have some people that truly get it, have been boots on the ground. And unfortunately, because of how structures are, a lot of those that are boots on the ground, they never get their just due. But I think that's where we all as a community have to do better at pushing back and challenging, like, no, we can't keep uplifting, X, Y, and Z when we know that we have people over here that are doing dynamic work. And that's one thing that I practice often is calling people in, like, hey, let's have a conversation. And you can do it behind closed doors and be like, now look, you know you're fucking the people up, right? You know what you're doing ain't right. Like, to have those real conversations with each other, because it, to me, I'd rather tell another person that I'm working with in my community, the trans sister, they're like, hey, sister, you fucking up and you're making it a little bad for all of us. And people are looking at you like, oh, that's the golden rule right there. That's how we're going to do it. And that's not what we want. Like, we can support each other, and we have to be honest with each other. We're not always going to get along, y'all. We ain't always going to like each other. We are no different than any other communities. As I stated earlier, we're not monoliths. And we should not be treated as such, and we should not be put in a box as such, like, oh, all of y'all, all of us got to get along. No, we don't. Because all cishet people don't get along. All people of color don't get along. All non-ethnic people don't get along. So why should we have to live up under those terms that we all got to get along? No. And so that leads me to what advice do you have for trans men and trans masculine folks to empower themselves and own their power?
I think for me personally, as Octavia was saying, we're not a monolith. Learning that there are multiple ways to be trans, multiple ways to look as a man. So just living into your truth and your gender and your identity, being proud of yourself is the most important thing. Also, in terms of representation, I've never had a trans doctor. I want to go out there and be a trans doctor. If you're in a space where you haven't seen someone in there, go do that. Go be that person.
I love it. I kind of have like the vision of like advocacy and activism, and that's kind of like where I live and breathe and what my personal passion is in as well. So I'm kind of like coming in from that direction. And one thing that I realized, like when things started getting better for me, when things started feeling lighter for me, and like when I started being happier, is when I started living like hyper authentically and intentionally. Like I say what I mean and I mean what I say. I do what like is calling me to do, what my value space are calling me to do, and being like in a position where I consistently want to learn. There's so much for me to deconstruct and learn, and it's a journey. And if we're not learning together, then we're not necessarily like building the future that we truly need to be working towards, right? So I would say like be authentic, be intentional. And one of the things that, like, again, in the community, like we don't always get along, like realistically, like some of us like do step on other people and have caused harm and damage in within the community. And it's not on us to bury people. It's not on us to make sure that they get their due, right? Because like you have hurt people or you have hurt me, you know? For me, there's a saying in Spanish that's like, el que obra mal se le pudre el tamal. So like very little, it's like, if you're a bad person, like your junk is gonna rot. So like that's kind of like what it translates to directly, but it's like, life will take care of things. Like there is a general path that we're all moving towards that is good, and life will take care of things, and like people will realize that they have a personal journey that they have to go on, and it's not on you to burden yourself to like make sure that like these people you know, like recognize and go on their journey. Like you focus on your own journey, focus on your growth, like always be a learner, always be talking with people about your goals, about your dreams, because when you're doing that, you become the representation that other people are looking for, right? Like you become that person, that reference point for them. So talk about your dreams, talk about your goals, talk about who you are, how you're growing, how you're learning. And that'll definitely be like make a difference for a lot of people who are watching you, because I guarantee you people are watching you.
Ashe. Colin? Oh, Colin already went.
I don't mind going. I think the
Sure.
what advice would I give what advice do I have for trans men or transmasculine folks? I think Brene Brown said courage starts with showing up and letting ourselves be seen. And I don't think that's necessarily from a visibility perspective, but it's just showing up and being who you are, and that's enough. That should be enough. And if it's not enough for anyone, then they're not enough for you. So I think, being able to be courageous, looks very different for different people. You can be stealthed and still be courageous, because the very act of waking up and walking out of the door as a trans masculine person, particularly a person of color in this country, is an act of activism in and of itself every day. It's refusing to, be afraid to be yourself, to live your life, and to just, make sure people know that you believe that you belong, right? And I think that in and of itself is important for everyone to understand, but particularly our community. I think from, if I'm being frank, thinking about pre-transition, I was a Black woman in tech, right? And just thinking about how few opportunities Black women have in the United States, just how poorly Black women are treated. And we all know that they are like the bedrock of our civilization, right? The world as we know it. And so just being intentional when you can take up, helping people take up space, right? Like, don't be, don't be so comfortable in, the fact that or that you're used to seeing things, injustices or people being talked to or treated poorly. Like, it's not okay to be used to it, because now we could essentially use our privilege to kind of help make things better for another community who, at some point, one time in our life as a trans masculine person, we were there, right? We kind of understand, we of all people, we should know what it feels like to be treated in that way. So I think that kind of helps us build our own community. If people understand that we care so much about our community and making things better for everyone else, hopefully that'll be contagious, right? And it'll be less of the us versus them, but now it's us as a collective just trying to move our progress forward, because we do have a lot of struggles. While we have a lot of differences, we do have a lot of shared struggles that we could kind of help each other solve, right? As opposed to rebuilding, let's make this thing a collaborative effort, because again, we can't do it ourselves.
Ashe. And so, Lindsay, I'm gonna let you wrap up question 6 for us.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I always feel a little weird when I'm asked for advice. It's like, man, I don't know. I'm just making it up too. But I think for me, the advice I wish I had gotten was just like, live loud and do it like right now. Like, don't wait. Just like go live your life and live it really loud, and do it for you. I mean, I think, trans people are magic, and like I take so much power from the people around me. I take so much joy and just I think if you can't find your own magic, look for it around you, because it's everywhere, and then reflect it through yourself, and we need you. Like, whatever it is, whatever your thing is, whatever your power is, like we need it. And so, yeah, just turn the volume all the way up and come join us. And yeah, we're excited to have you. I think, I think the more people that we can give living freely and as loud as they possibly can be, the better it is for all of us. And shifting into that abundance mindset, like if you can do it, and we're all trying to do it, like we'll get there, we'll find it. So yeah, thank you for having me again today.
Ashe.
That's all I got.
No, that was great. So, unfortunately, we are getting close to the end of our time together. But before we part, I would like to ask each of our panelists to share one thing they would like the audience to take away from this session in 30 seconds or less.
I'll just say I'm ready for whoever's watching us right now to be on a panel next year, and I look forward to hearing what growth has happened in that time.
I would say I definitely want everyone on to take away the fact that you deserve. We deserve. And if you, for any minute, start to doubt the fact that you deserve to live your life the way that you feel most authentic and real and just happy, right? Because at the end of the day, we're all just trying to be happy, trying to live a life where we're, hopefully some easement and, just stability and safety and security, right? But at the end of the day, all of those things they start at home with you, right? So give yourself the permission to be yourself. And, I promise you will not regret it.
So, Colin, Lindsay?
Me personally, even though I'm on the panel, I took a lot of a sense of community out of this. This is the first time I've been around so many transmasculine individuals speaking specifically on things that impact me and my life and my identity. So I hope the audience took away that sense of community and knowing that there are people out there, groups you can join, and people out there advocating for your rights.
Yeah, I have to agree. I think I just feel such a sense of connection being in this space with folks, and I hope you took away that these spaces are important and you belong in them, and there's so much power and joy here. And so, I'm taking away from this that I want to be in more transmasculine spaces because this was great. This was really fun.
Ashe, and thank you all to our wonderful panelists today. So, in closing, I want to leave you all with a mantra from my mentor, Avery Wyatt, who instilled in me that people do not care how much you know until they know how much you care. And I thank you all for joining us, and we're going to turn it over to Tyree.
What's going on? Thank y'all so much. Thank y'all for tuning in. Thank you to the wonderful panelists. Thank you to our phenomenal, beautiful moderator, Miss Octavia. Fellas, siblings, thank y'all. So with that being said, this was our last day, y'all, last day of panels. We made it through the week of T-Ward, second year, 2022. So I would like to once again say a special thank you to our sponsors. Thank you, Destination Tomorrow, If A Foundation for Radical Possibility, Transgender Justice Funding Project, Gilead Science, Us Helping Us, National Trans Visibility March, Unspoken Treasures Society, Flux AHF, and the Human Rights Campaign. Without our wonderful sponsors, we could not have done this. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And y'all don't forget, on Saturday, tomorrow night, we have Sips and Cigars, Transmasculine and Transmen only. Remember, our sponsor made it for us to be free. And y'all can come. Just sign up. Let's go. And on Sunday, we have the Black Trans Joy Brunch from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Tickets are free. Once again, to our wonderful sponsors, we couldn't have done it without them. Thank y'all again for tuning in this week. We're so excited. This concludes our virtual panels of T-Ward, but we'll be back again next year. Thank y'all so much.
Hey, Tyree. Hey, we had an amazing time. Let me bring my good brother back on, too. Hey, Lee, y'all did the damn thing this week. On behalf of myself and the nosies at TPX, I want to take this opportunity to thank you for allowing me to come in this week. Hey, listen, before we get up out here, I gotta just tell y'all my notes. Hold on, let me cut my music down. I gotta tell y'all my notes. Oh my gosh, I have so many notes from all week long, but I'm gonna wrap it up for y'all. Hold on. You are not alone. These are some of the thoughts from the panelists all week long, okay? You are not alone. Don't allow healthcare to make you feel like something is wrong with you, because ain't shit wrong with you, okay? If you got a doctor that is not trans aware, they ain't giving you what you need, find another one. Don't be the gatekeeper to your information. If you have a healthcare professional that is doing amazing with you, share that information so that others can get the same kind of treatment. You are worthy and deserving of being well. We got hold on, I got some more. Representation is key. Compensation, education, having a true safe space, that affirmation and that resiliency is so important. We also are no stronger than the weakest link. If you can't find it, connect with someone that has it. If they don't have it, Caleb said it today. Excuse me. Create it. If there's a doctor that you want to see, they say be the representation that you want. So that is a challenge to you. Your health matters. And as my good sis Octavia said, good sis say, I don't speak crab. I say, me either. Okay? So listen, we up in here. We up out of here. We see y'all next year, baby. We see y'all Saturday at the Sips and Cigars. We see you Sunday at the brunch. And catch them replays. Share with your network. Hit me on social media, baby. We up out of here.